Hi relatives! So this is Mackenzie. We're here live on the HIR Wellness Institute Facebook page, and today we're going to be doing some Zentangle. So these are HIR Wellness Institute Warms Cares line. If you're ever having any trouble or you want to talk to someone, especially in this time of need and crisis, our Warms Cares lines are open Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. This is also a Zentangle that we did in the past. I still love these beads. They're so much fun. Alright. So, today, I've got just a regular sketch pad here. Well, it's actually a really thick piece of paper. But I'm going to be doing a larger sketch with you today. So first, I'm going to stick you into my little stand here, and then we'll get started. Alright, so I want you to grab a pen, pencil, ruler, and then an object roughly about, I don't know, like about the palm of your hand or so. I've got a couple of objects here that I'm going to start with. And you can use multiple objects or you can use just one. But here I've got a lid to a container. I've got a couple of cool rocks that my roommate picked up for me in the river the other day. And I'm going to use this to create an outline so that I can Zentangle the pieces. So the look that we're going to kind of be going for is this piece. And I'm going to be doing an edge-to-edge drawing with you, and this is an 11 by 14 piece of paper, so is the one that I'm going to be working with. So this is going to take a couple of sessions, but basically what we're going to do is we're going to create these outlines in black, and then we're going to Zentangle pieces in them. But what I'm going to be doing is putting these objects together so that they create multiple spaces. Alright, so let's get started. Alright, so we've got our blank piece of paper here, and I'm going to take a round object. I'm going to start with my pencil. The reason I'm going to use my pencil is because I want there to be some non-uniformity. Like, I want it to be a circle shape, I really do, which is why I'm using something round. But I'm going to go back over it later with a marker, and that's going to create a different look to it. So there's one circle. And now I'm just going to overlap it a little bit, and you can do this however you want to create any kind of design you want. And I'm just going to keep doing that, so I'm just going to keep overlapping. And you can use any object that's nearby. I mean, I'm using relatively small objects, but you know, I can take out this piece, I can take out this pair of scissors and I can add that in. I wouldn't recommend using something wet like a hot dog or something, but any physical object that's nice and dry, go and feel free to add that to your design. Smaller spaces can be fun to work with, or they can be annoying. That's just something that you're probably going to figure out over time. So here I've got kind of a weird looking, piece going. Fun part is, because I'm doing this in pencil, I can always erase something that I don't want to be there. And I think I don't want this little circle. It's a little bit, it's kind of disrupting the area. And I'm not going to do that, because I want these kind of larger areas for my design. Same with this other piece over here. So I'm going to take a rock over here. Ooh, we might get one of the cats in here. Alright. And all I'm doing really is just making a lot of spaces. And one of the big reasons I'm using a pencil right now is also to make sure that I don't draw on my rocks with a marker, because I like to keep my rocks looking like rocks most of the time. One giant rock. Alright, so now we've got a lot of odd looking objects, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my marker, and I've got a weird chisel shaped Sharpie today, so it's got a different angle to it, and I'm going to use that to outline my pieces. Now again, I'm going for non-uniformity. If you want your objects to look perfect, go right ahead. But I'm looking to get something a little bit weird out of this. I'm gonna make it funky. Of course, I can't draw a circle to save my life, so those are gonna be fun, slightly lopsided things. Alright, so this kind of just looks like a mess of lines right now, and that's okay. I'll show you a top view. So what we're going to do is we're going to put some Zentangle designs in all of them. So first, I'm going to take my eraser, and I'm just going to go in and erase any visible lines I have. Now the fun part of Zentangle too is if you did want to make this look like an object, you know, you could go in there and start sketching out something. So you could say like, you know what, these scissors, if I just follow that line, kind of look like a duck head. So I could always bring this down and then just not Zentangle the duck head or something. But I'm liking this chaos, so I'm just going to stick with what I've got going on. And using the same shape over and over again can get a more of a uniform look if that's what you're going for. Alright. So from here, I'm going to choose one of the Zentangle designs I'd like to do. I made this specifically so that I could have more fun picking out designs. I think to start with, I'm going to do this one because it's kind of a larger design. And one of the other things I'm going to be doing with this piece is I'm going to be adding color. So that's not something I do a lot of. I'm actually going to go in and add some more of these shapes because I want to do an edge-to-edge drawing. Now, I don't usually add color to my pieces as I go along, but I did want to show what adding color could look like in a Zentangle if you were to decide to do something like that. gonna take my marker again. I know it's really hard to see because I'm using a lot of the paper here. One of the big problems I'm going to be facing when using my colored pens is that they dry even more slowly than my regular ink pens do. And that can cause a lot of trouble, especially if you're trying to go from one section right to the next section. So I'm going to be very purposeful in going from one side of the piece of paper all the way to the other. It also means I'm going to have to do a little bit more planning on my end, and this is just so that I can get what I want out of this, which is to do some Zentangles with colors in a way that kind of makes sense to my brain. So, I'm going to start by taking my furthermost piece and I'm going to divide it up, or I'm going to outline some squares in 1 centimeter increments in pencil. Alright, so I got my pencil. I'm going to be marking out my 1 centimeter increments. And I think just to make this easier, I'm actually just going to do it down at the bottom. That way I don't have to redo them as I go from one side of the paper to the other. So I'm starting all the way over here. I'm going to go to the other side, do the same thing. Oops. Kind of working around my camera here, so sorry if we get awkward. Again, this is just 1 centimeter increments. And I'm doing it along the edge of my paper just so that I don't have to go back and redo them as I go through this design. I tend to be using a lot of these grids. And there are lots of different designs you can do for grids. I tend to use the same types of designs slightly modified, and I'll point those out as we go along. And that's just because I use Zentangle designs with short stroke motions most of the time, or very repetitive motions. And again, that's because Zentangle is mostly about me, feeling happy and doing something that is meditative for me. So that's the kind of design that I like going for most of the time. And just doing all this work to set it up tends to make it a little bit easier as I go along, because I can go possibly days without having to do most of this work setup and just doing the fun meditative drawing portion. One more side. Again, fun part is I probably won't have to do this again. So it'll just be this once for the whole thing. So I start up here. I think this is where I lined it up on the other side. Alright, so this is definitely really nice that I have such a long ruler. For those of you who don't have a long ruler or who don't have a ruler at all, you can use straight edges. You don't have to use such exact markings if that's not the kind of design you want to go for. But for me, this is what I really like. So I like using a lot of designs that have these grid patterns. So it's definitely worth it for me to have a nice ruler on hand. Alright, so I've lined up my marks on one side and the other. I probably won't be able to get this in screen, so I'm just going to go along and draw out each of these lines. There we go. So what has everyone been doing for fun and for art? Do you guys do Zentangle with me? Do you, bake or draw or color? I had someone ask about Zentangling coloring books a while back. And honestly, I've been thinking a lot about it. And I think I'm going to pick up a coloring book just to see what it would look like to Zentangle it. So I'm really looking forward to that. Some of the other art that I've been doing lately, I did some hand stitch Ho Chunk style applique. I've been painting a keyboard, like a typing keyboard for your computer. Been taking the keys off of an old keyboard, which I don't know if it works or not, and I've been painting them, so that's been pretty fun. I've also been doing a lot of baking, which I love to an extent. I don't like dishes. So what kind of art have you guys been doing? You guys Zentangling with me? Sewing, cooking, painting? What other types of art out there? Like calligraphy, tie-dye? Oh, looks like we got an ambulance passing up my way. Or a fire truck. Or a couple. Careful out there, guys. Really hot, really dry. A lot of forest in our area. Got all these lines going on. Oh, I'm so happy. Fun part about it is if you want diagonal lines, you could always just go in at an angle with these, and that would work too. Yep, there we go. Okay. So now I'm gonna flip, do it the other direction again, and then we're gonna have fun. We're gonna get to do a little bit of drawing, a little bit of coloring. I do think this is gonna be a pretty ink-heavy design. And again, we are gonna be using colors, so feel free to break out those colored pencils if you've got them, colored pens. I'm gonna be using my same standard pen, just in a couple of different colors. Got a spider over here I'm keeping an eye on. I'm not a big fan of spiders, so if you see me like, or if you hear me like scream and run, you know what happened. I'm gonna be brave though. Oops. Lots of lines. But again, the whole thing is gridded. I won't have to do it again. It'll get very cloudy as I go along, but that's okay. All I have to do is wait for about a day after I'm done drawing, and then I can erase all the lines. This is also going to have a really fun effect because every time that we use the lines in design, it's going to be continuing off of any previous ones. So it'll all look very uniform, like we planned it out. Switch the book around. Just gonna mess up that line a couple more times. Almost done. I think I missed that entire last line. What do you guys usually listen to while you're doing art? I am listening to a book, and I'm really enjoying it. I usually listen to a lot of books. Recently read The Host by Stephanie Meyer for like the third time. The Martian by Andy Weir. Right now I'm reading Something Queen by Jennifer Esteep. So I'm having lots of fun. Okay, so I have gridded the whole thing, which is a lot of lines you can see. But now I've got it set up to pretty much be able to draw through on a grid, which I really like because I like using grids. You've seen me do that a lot. Alright, so I'm going to start again furthest to the left, and I'm going to move right because the inks I'm using tend to stay wet for a long time. So I've got 4 colors here. And you probably can't see them very well, but I've got blue, green, purple, red, and black. So those are the 4 colors that I'll be using throughout my Zentangle. And I will be using the colors to draw the lines. So this is the brand pen I like, so these are the colors I'm going to use. And I'm going to start by just doing a regular checker pattern with a slight twist. So I'm going to take my blue pen here. And just inside this section, got a missing line. Thereabouts. Eyeball it. So in here I'm going to take a square. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to put my lines in one direction here. Alright, so I got my lines going in one direction. I'm going to skip a square and I'm going to continue doing that just like a checkered board. And I'm just going to continue to repeat it. I have to be very careful going this far over to the side because again this ink takes a lot longer to dry than the black one. I don't know why, but it does. So I'm just very careful about making sure my hand doesn't lay on it. I think you can see it on camera, like the ink up here is dried, but where my pen picks up it's very dark, and that's just because the ink is still very wet there. And that can take up to about 2 days to dry, I think. Oh, I already smeared the ink. It's over here now. Oops. Alright. So that's my first set. Now for my second one, I'm going to keep the grid, but I'm going to slightly modify it with my pencil first. And I'm just going to go in and freehand draw the diagonal line through each of these squares. Alright. I'm going to do very similar to what I did here. And I'm going to take my black pen this time. So black. Yeah, so that one's in there. Yep. Alright. And I'm going to do it by triangle, right? So in this top half of the triangle, I'm going to draw lines going up and down. And then the bottom half of the triangle, I'm going to draw lines going from left to right. Now you can switch the orientation of your paper as you do this to make it easier. As you can see, that's not my best. So I am going to switch the orientation of the paper just so I continue to do up and down lines. And again, I'm just doing the same thing in all of the same shape, right? So because this is now the top triangle, I'm going up and down in here. And I'll do the reverse set of lines in the bottom triangle. As you can see here, this is actually a design of itself. Just doing one half of the triangle with lines is very visually appealing, but doing the other half can create this kind of illusionary effect. And if we take a look here at this example sheet that I put together, oops, this is kind of what it's going to look like once we go in and erase the lines, like a bunch of leaves and squares. So I like that effect, that's what I'm going for, but you can just do half the triangle if that's what you're feeling comfortable with. Okay, switch the paper around again. Okay. So that's that design. I'm just getting it from a different angle here. It's very illusion-y, which I like about it, and it's gonna look a little bit cleaner once we erase those pencil lines from it, but I won't be doing that until next time, just so that I make sure that all of the ink is dry before I do that. So for this next one here, we're gonna see color application to add dimension. So this will be taking something that we've done before, and just by adding color to it, we've changed how it works. So I'm actually going to start by erasing these lines that are already in here. And then I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to add some new ones. So we've done this one before. This one right here. And I don't really know what to call this. It's kind of just a bunch of black space here where you outline a set of lines and then you go in and color the empty space. We're going to kind of be doing the opposite. So we're going to take this space here and we're going to create the lines. So I'm just going to lightly in pencil kind of color in some lines that intersect. And that's all I'm really doing. It's just some intersecting lines, mostly trying to stay at angles. And you can make as many as you want. You can make them at different thicknesses. Right? And that's all I'm doing. And then I'm going to take my black pen and I'm going to outline these pencil lines, right? So I'm just outlining these pencil lines. Now when I erase this, that means that I've created some pencil line, or I've created white space in here, right? Oops, sorry. So just doing some outlines. Right? So I've outlined everything there. Next up, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing a thicker line. So this is going to be the beginning of coloring in this space. And all I'm doing is kind of adding just a bit of a margin, and I'm going to color that in. So this is between the pencil line and then this empty space here. And I'm just making a nice thick line area. And I'm just going to do that for all of my areas to add that margin in, and then color that in with black. so that's the black portion, and now I'm going to take another color. So at this point, I'm going to start looking at the colors I've previously used. So I've used blue over here. Now depending, I could use blue here. Visually, they're right next to each other, but I do have 4 spots that are actually a lot closer within the design. So I'm going to use green here, just so that I can have a different color here. Red would also look really nice, or purple. Any color would look nice here, but I'm just going to use my green pen, and I'm going to color in what is currently the white areas, because I haven't erased those pencils yet. So that's that part. I'm going to cheat a little bit just so that you can see what this is going to look like, and I'm going to carefully go in and erase one part here. Very carefully. As carefully as I can, because I like this design. But basically, that's what it's going to look like. So it's going to be very white here, then it's going to have the black and then the green. So I like how the color adds to this, and it almost creates an entirely different design based off of that. So here we've got the original, right? And then here we've got the one with color. The lines are a little bit thicker because that's how it's set up. But then by adding that extra color in there, we basically create a different design. All right, so I've got one last one here. So for this one too, I'm going to be erasing the existing lines. Alright, so I've got a nice clear space. And for this one, I'm going to be doing my wonderful little swirls. Right, so I'm going to start with black, and you're only going to be using one color. I like using red for this, just because it's so bold. 2 colors. You're only going to be using 2 colors for this. But basically, you're just going to start with the swirl design. We've done this, I think, in every Zentangle video so far. But you're just creating a swirl design, trying to get the line as close as possible without touching the previous lines, right? And this one works better if you can get the lines even closer, right? So you're creating a really close swirl, and we're just going to try and leave a space around the middle open, and we're going to put a red swirl there. It tends to look very psychedelic. Alright, so I'm just doing really tightly coiled curls. So I'm reaching the center here, and I haven't quite filled up all the space, and I'm just going to put in a red swirl. Now for this one, I'm going to do a full swirl, but once I reach the edge, I'm going to stop. And that's because the red ink is lighter than the black, so I don't want to try and make it do more than it can. I'm actually gonna pull it around once more, just this part over here, right? So there's my red swirl, and I'm just gonna go in and fill in the edges, being very careful to make sure I stop at the red line, because if I go over that with black, it's just gonna disappear. I'm just filling in the space around it. Alright. There that is. Alright. See, that's why I like that little red swirl. Alright. So I'm just gonna give you a full look. So we probably won't even finish this next time, but we've gotten it started. And again, I'm going to be working from one side of the page to the other whenever possible. Always feel free to do any of this on your own if you feel up to it. Otherwise, I will see you again next Friday. So thank you for joining us, and have a wonderful day and a weekend. Bye-bye.